Isn't it strange how no one ever warns you about the emotional weight that comes with getting older? They'll hand you brochures about arthritis, about your heart, about how to eat better after 60. But no one sits you down and says, "Hey, by the way, there might be a day when you feel invisible. So let me be that person for you today." Because if you're over 60 and you've ever sat in a room full of people and still felt lonely, if you've ever smiled politely through a conversation, while a part of you felt like it didn't belong anymore, you're not imagining it. And you're definitely not alone. Before we dive deeper, take a breath with me. Let's slow down together. I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Leave a comment and tell me. If you find this video helps you feel seen, please like it, subscribe, and stay connected. Because this channel is built on elderly wisdom, real stories, life lessons from the elderly, and everything that makes senior health more than just numbers, it makes it human. Now let's begin with a truth very few dare to speak. Aging can hurt. Not just your knees or your back, but somewhere deeper. I once sat with a man named George, 81 years old. A former mailman. Widowed. 2 kids, both successful, both living in other states. He looked at me and said, "I don't think they know I still cry sometimes. Not because I'm weak, but because I remember when I used to matter." That broke me. Because that's the ache no doctor will diagnose. The kind that builds over time, like rust on an old gate. The feeling that the world has moved on and left you behind. George isn't alone. I've heard the same words from dozens of others, retired teachers, nurses, engineers. People who once held communities together, now wondering if they're just shadows in the background. And yet, they smile. They wave. They say they're fine. But behind that brave face is a quiet grief, a mourning of self. You see, aging doesn't just mean losing people. Sometimes, it means losing pieces of yourself. And the hardest part? Watching yourself disappear while you're still here. There's a woman named Evelyn, 84, used to run a bookstore. Sharp as a whip. She told me, "I still dream in color. I still remember every detail of my wedding day. But when I talk, people nod like I'm speaking from a museum exhibit." And that's where the hurt lives, not just in being older, but in being unseen. It's not just nostalgia. It's not weakness. It's the emotional decline that creeps in when you no longer feel needed. And the irony? This stage of life is full of inspiration, of hard-earned clarity, of lessons no book can teach. But our society rarely asks for that wisdom. It praises youth and forgets the hands that built the foundation. So let's talk about the first emotional pain. Being treated like you're no longer relevant. It's subtle. It starts when people speak a little louder around you, assuming you can't understand. When they make decisions for you without asking. When the waiter talks to your adult child instead of you. And you think, was there a moment I stopped mattering? Let me be clear, you didn't. You're still here. Still thinking. Still feeling. Still deserving of attention, respect, and purpose. But it's hard to keep believing that when the world keeps talking over you. I remember a senior writing class I visited once. The topic was, write a letter to your younger self. What came out weren't lessons. It was grief. One woman wrote, "Tell her not to get too used to being noticed. It fades." That line still haunts me. Because aging doesn't just take away youth, it changes your reflection. Not the one in the mirror. The one in other people's eyes. Let's move to the second kind of pain. The loss of roles that gave you meaning. You might have been a mother, a mentor, a leader in your church or community. People came to you. Needed you. Respected you. Now the phone rings less. The mailbox is emptier. You're not the first person they call when something happens, and sometimes, you're not even the second. That sense of, who am I now, starts to whisper in your quiet moments. And if we're honest, it can feel like grief. I once met Harold, a retired firefighter, 76. He said, "I used to run into burning buildings. Now my daughter argues with me about what brand of cereal I should eat. And it's not about the cereal. It's about dignity. About the fear that once you stop doing, people forget that you are. But here's the truth they don't tell you enough: you don't stop being valuable when your job ends. Or when the kids leave. Or when your knees ache too much to dance. You become something else. A keeper of stories. A mentor of lived experience. A living library of mistakes and miracles. And yes, it hurts to let go of who you were. But what if, in this new chapter, there's still a version of you the world needs, one that speaks with quiet confidence instead of loud accomplishments? Let's not forget one more hidden pain. The guilt of not enjoying retirement like you thought you would. You were told it would be the golden years. Relaxing. Easy. Joyful. But for many, it's the opposite. Slower days sometimes mean lonelier ones. And without work, structure, or constant noise, the silence can feel sharp. It doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means you're human. No one prepares you for the emotional shift that comes when your calendar is empty, your kids are busy, and the highlight of your week is a doctor's appointment. But let me say this, loud and clear. Your worth is not tied to productivity. You do not need to fill your days to prove anything. Sometimes, just sitting in the sun with a cup of tea, that is enough. Sometimes, surviving the loss of a spouse, living through decades of change. Enduring heartbreaks and healing quietly, that is the most heroic thing of all. So if you've been feeling this invisible weight, if you've been wondering if it's just you, it's not. Aging brings emotional challenges that no one warns you about, but that doesn't mean they have to break you. You are still becoming. And this part of your life? It deserves just as much space as any other. Thank you for being here today. For listening. For feeling. Please leave a comment and let me know, where are you watching from? If this message spoke to you, please like the video, subscribe, and join this space where your senior reflections, your elderly wisdom, and your quiet motivation matter deeply. Because we're not just aging. We're living. And there's beauty in that. There's a kind of silence that comes with aging. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that fills the room when the phone doesn't ring, when the calendar is blank, when laughter is something you remember more than hear. And in that silence, a deeper pain can begin to grow. The pain of feeling unnecessary. This one hits harder than people think. Because you've spent your whole life being needed. Needed as a parent. As a worker. As a spouse. As a friend. You had responsibilities, people to take care of, things to fix, problems to solve. And then one day, it's like the world quietly decided, it doesn't need you in the same way anymore. Your kids are grown. They've built their own lives. You're no longer going to work. No more deadlines. No one waiting for your advice. No more knocking on your door for help. And you start to ask yourself a hard question. What is my purpose now? I remember talking to Eleanor, 76, from Ohio. She said, I used to make dinner every night for 6 people. Now I microwave soup and watch the news. No one needs me anymore. You could hear it in her voice, the ache of having so much love left to give and nowhere to pour it. And that's what no one tells you. When the world stops needing your hands, your heart still keeps offering. And it hurts. It hurts when no one asks for your opinion. When your suggestions are brushed off as old-fashioned. When you feel like you're just passing time, instead of being part of it. But here's what I want you to hear. Just because the world is quieter now doesn't mean you are less valuable. Being needed isn't just about tasks. It's about presence. It's about wisdom. It's about the way your story makes someone feel less alone. It's the way you listen. The way you remember. The way you see through things that others miss. And if no one has told you lately, you are still needed. Even if your circle is smaller. Even if your voice feels drowned out. You matter. But I know, it doesn't always feel that way. Because there's another emotional wound that creeps in slowly. The pain of watching the world change without you. Technology. Trends. Music. Manners. Everything feels faster. Louder. Colder. You walk into a store and there's no cashier, just a screen. You call customer service and a robot answers. You try to talk to your grandchildren and they're looking down at their phones. It's like the language has changed. And you're still speaking the old one. And you start to feel left behind. Carl, a retired teacher from Wisconsin, told me this. The world used to make sense to me. Now I feel like a visitor in my own life. He said every time he tried to learn something new, apps, online banking, video calls, he felt stupid. Like a burden. Like someone getting in the way. And that's the real pain, isn't it? Not just that the world changed, but that no one slowed down to bring you along with it. So you begin to shrink back. You stop asking for help. You pretend you don't need it. And you sit quietly, watching life rush past your window. But here's something the world forgets: the wisdom you carry, the patience, the experience, the compassion, those things don't come from a screen. They come from living. They come from having loved and lost. From having waited for letters before there were texts. From understanding the value of a slow Sunday and a face-to-face conversation. You have something that cannot be downloaded. Something rare. And just because the world moves fast doesn't mean you have to disappear. You don't have to keep up. You just have to keep showing up. Even if your hands tremble when you try to text. Even if your words get stuck. Even if the world doesn't always understand you. You are still here. And that matters. Let me tell you one more story. Luis, 81. From New Jersey. His wife passed away 4 years ago. His grandkids moved away. He spends most of his time in his apartment, watching baseball, feeding the birds, fixing things that don't need fixing just to keep his hands busy. He told me this. Some days, I feel like I'm the last chapter of a book no one's reading anymore. That line hit me like a punch to the chest. Because that's what this pain does, it convinces you that you're no longer part of the story. But you are. You're not the end. You're the wisdom woven through every page. If you're still listening to this, thank you. Thank you for having the courage to stay with me through these truths. Leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And please, if this touched you in any way, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Because this space is for you. For your stories. For your grief, your beauty, your reflection. You are not alone in this. And in the quiet moments, you are more seen than you know. There's something sacred about this time of life. Not because it's easy. Not because it's quiet. But because it reveals things you never had time to feel before. Like the truth that aging doesn't just bring gray hairs and doctor visits. It brings a new kind of pain. A quiet pain. The pain of remembering what's gone. You see, memory is both a gift and a wound. You remember the smell of your mother's cooking. The first time someone held your hand and didn't let go. The sound of your children's laughter echoing down the hallway. The way your spouse looked at you that night you danced in the living room, just the two of you. But now those moments come back like ghosts. You smile, and then you ache. Because they're still with you, just not the way they used to be. This is the part of aging no one prepared us for. The part where memories become more vivid than reality. Where a familiar song can bring you to tears. Where a photograph can knock the air out of your chest. Not because you're weak, but because you remember too well. Clara, 85, told me something I'll never forget. I still set the table for two sometimes. Not because I forget, but because I remember. And that's what aging does. It makes the past feel close, even when the present feels far away. And that's painful. But it's also beautiful. Because your memories, they're proof that you lived. That you loved. That you mattered to someone once. Maybe to many. Still, the remembering can be heavy. It sneaks up in the middle of the night, when the world is asleep and you're left alone with your thoughts. And suddenly, you're back in a hospital room. Or at a funeral. Or packing up a home that once smelled like safety and Sundays. That's when you need to hear this. You're allowed to cry over what's gone. You're allowed to miss people who aren't coming back. You're allowed to feel the weight of a life that has changed too much, too fast. But you're also allowed to laugh again. To smile at the memory instead of crumble under it. To feel joy and sadness in the same breath. That's what emotional strength looks like now. And maybe the most tender wound of all? The pain of no longer recognizing yourself. This one runs deep. You look in the mirror and see someone you didn't expect. The face has changed. The posture has shifted. The spark in your eyes feels dimmer. You wonder where the person you once were has gone. You used to walk with confidence. Now you watch every step. You used to be the one others came to. Now you're the one needing help. You used to feel vibrant, full of purpose. And now, some days, you just feel tired. This can be hard to say out loud. Because on the outside, you smile. You say you're doing fine. But inside, there's a quiet grieving. For the body that once moved without pain. For the energy that used to carry you through a whole day. For the reflection that used to feel familiar. Let me tell you something. That person? The one you used to be? They're still in there. Changed, yes. Softer. Wiser. More fragile. But still you. And maybe that's the real beauty of this stage of life. Not pretending that nothing's changed. But learning how to love yourself as you are, now. Wrinkles and all. Slower steps and all. All the scars. All the strength. All the survival. You've been through things most people couldn't imagine. You've endured heartbreak, loss, disappointment. And yet here you are, still breathing. Still showing up. That is not weakness. That is power. And I want to end with this: there is still so much life in you. No, maybe not the life you once had. But a quieter, deeper, more soulful life. The kind that finds beauty in morning light. The kind that cherishes long hugs and soft music. The kind that sits beside someone in silence and still says everything. The kind that values time, not for how much is left, but for how deeply it can still be felt. You may feel invisible to the world. But in this space, you are seen. You are heard. And you are loved, for exactly who you are, right now. So please, if this video gave you comfort, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Click that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Because here, your story matters. Your elderly reflections aren't forgotten, they're treasured. Your life lessons still light the way for others. You may be older now. But you are not less. You are simply more human than ever.